What does it take to name a brand for a market you've never stepped into? This is How the World Names, conversations with members of We Are Naming, the global network of experts shaping the future of international brand development. In this series, we explore what's wonderful and weird about the languages, cultures, and countries we represent. Hello, and welcome to How the World Names. I'm Caitlin Barrett. I am the U.S. partner of We Are Naming, and I am joined today by the wonderful Ignasi Fontvila in Spain. How are you, Ignasi?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Hot, but fine.
That makes sense for Spain. I would love for us to start by you just telling us a little bit about your naming background. You have a very rich naming background. If you want to tell me a little bit about maybe how you got started or the type of naming work that you do these days.
In fact, I started by chance because I was teaching classes at the university. And one day I found a student that was very happy. And she told me that she was happy because she had started to work in a naming agency. That was back in 1995. So 30 years ago, 3 decades ago. And I didn't I didn't know the existence of this naming agency. I didn't know that naming exists as a profession, in fact. And I was working in advertising, so I think that this says all about about my complete ignorance. But I see her very happy, and she told me that they use freelancers to do name lists for their projects, and she invited me to do a creation the next week. I said no at the beginning because I was very busy. But then I found her again a couple of days later, and she invited me again, and I couldn't say no. And that this is the beginning of my love story with naming.
Wow.
And since I started, I've never stopped doing names and teaching names at the university. So it's been 30 years this year. Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely one of the longer players in the game.
You can be older.
No, I mean, I have met people from Spain who credit you specifically with teaching them how to name. Like you were very influential in the naming world. You are the genesis of many
Am
naming
I?
careers. You are. Whether or not they tell you, you are.
I
Um,
can't believe you.
so you wrote a report about naming in Spain, and I think there's a lot to unpack in this. I will link it in the show notes of this podcast description, but let's talk about it. So maybe first we can start by having you just give us a little bit of the linguistic landscape of Spain. It's so much more than Spanish. Do you want to talk about the languages that are spoken there and sort of how they're treated?
Yeah, in fact, I think that everybody who doesn't live in Spain thinks that Spanish is the only language that is spoken here. But in fact, we have five official languages. We have Spanish, of course, and we have also Catalan, and we have Basque in the Basque country, and we have Galician in the north west of Spain, and we also have Aranese, which is a variation of Occitan, which is spoken by maybe 3,000 people on the northwest of Catalonia. So we have all these languages. So I think that if we want that even a local brand may work in Spain, we have to take in account all these languages, because you can make up a word that works perfectly in Spanish, but it may be a flop in Basque, sorry, or in Galician, for instance. So we have to check a lot of languages here.
And then beyond that, you also mentioned like there's just, Spain is in Europe. You have speakers of so many languages present in Spain. So to mistake, a name being good in Spanish, would be to leave out all the audiences for a name. Like thinking about European countries as a place where you have a very global group of people present that speak. I think you said you got 300 languages spoken in Barcelona.
Yeah, in Barcelona, according to the council. So it must be true. If the council says so, it must be
They would
true.
never
I
lie.
think, yeah, we should believe them.
Abs-
So, but yeah, yeah, but yeah, as you say, we also are in Europe, and we are one of the biggest um, tourist countries in the world. So we receive, just in Barcelona, I think that we receive something like 30 million people
Wow.
or in Spain. No, don't believe me, because I'm very bad at numbers. I'm very good at words, but very bad at figures. So don't believe when I say a number. It's always false, probably. But the fact is, we have plenty of tourists. So I think that even the most local brands have to take in account that their name must work in a global context. So Spain is not an exception. I think
And
that
one
everyone thinks of that.
one of the other things that you write about that I really liked are the Anglicisms, right? The use of
Yeah,
Spanish and English in the U.S. I don't know if it's just a U.S. thing. We always call it Spanglish. Where Spanish speakers come to the U.S. and they kind of pick up this funny hybrid of the two. Talk to me about the use of that in naming. How does English, Spanish sort of mix into names, and what are some of those names? What do those look or sound like?
I think that names that are based on English are very popular. Probably, I don't know, because I haven't made a thorough research about that. But it just a common sense. I think that Spain is like other countries, is full of startups, and startups want grow locally. Or they are made locally, but they grow internationally. So I think that when someone creates a startup, their final idea is to grow and to sell. So they look for international names that maybe tomorrow can work in an international context. So this can be a possible explanation for this blooming of English names in the local market. And then I think that English gives this international air, so this cool air.
Mm.
And probably if you use a Spanish name in some contexts, in some sectors, it sounds too local, and too local is not bad, because Spain has a great image in food, for instance, in wine, even in some sectors of fashion. But it's not it doesn't have a great country image in terms of technology, for instance. So if you want to create a technology company, a fintech, for instance, probably you won't think you about using a Spanish word for them. So I think that this intention to give the brand an international air uh, makes this trend grow every day. But we have plenty of Spanish names. So, and then we have some hybridations too. For instance, we have names like Pans and Company is a very popular sandwich franchise in Spain. And Pans and Company is a mix between Catalan. Pans means bread, so bread and company. It's very descriptive, but it's a mix between Catalan and English. And we have other names, for instance, Fintonic, which is a fintech, or we have Wallapop, which is a marketplace. So we have plenty of English names that if you don't know it's a Spanish company, you never say so by its name.
Interesting. The other thing that you mentioned that I really liked was the Spanish inclination towards nicknames, to shortening things, kind of making them more friendly and familiar. Can Can you talk a little bit about that and give some examples of the Spanish style of nicknaming?
Yeah, yeah, we have. I think that probably the reason is this warmth and this empathy, because we have plenty of, even especially maybe in this startup sector, because startups are very creative with the use of names. Some of them are very descriptive, so very conservative, but the other ones are very creative. And for instance, we have names like Mr. Jeff, which
I love
they
that
are,
so much.
yeah, on online laundries
Uh-huh.
called Mr. Jeff. We have, for instance, Hoff, Hoff, which theoretically means Hall of Fame. It's
Right.
finished with a double F.
Yes.
Maybe it's Hall of Famous Fame, which they are sneakers, but it sounds like if it was a personal name. Or we have, for instance, Lowy, so the word low with an I at the end, which is a mobile telephone company. Or we have, for instance, Irio. That's a name that I did 7 or 8 years ago for uh, a high speed transportation, train transportation. So there are plenty of these names. Or for instance, Buddy, which is an application for renting rooms, or for instance, Movie, which is Moobi for cinemas, which mimics the
Hmm.
word movie, but as if it was some kind of hybrid between Moby Dick and movie. So we have
Cute.
plenty of these familiar sounding names. Yeah.
Yeah, does it feel reflective of like a certain strain of Spanish culture? You know, that feeling of being warm and friendly and familiar. Does it feels authentic to certain parts of culture? Do you think that's where it comes from and why
Yeah,
those names
maybe this is
succeed?
the external image of Spanish people.
Yeah,
I
I haven't done the
I
interview
don't
with
know
our
if
partners yet, but I wonder if Germany will be
sorry.
as cute.
I don't know if we are so friendly, in fact, but
Mhm.
at least we seem so.
Exactly.
We pretend to be.
For better and
But
for worse. Um, well, the flip side of this that I love. I love these types of names that you put in your report. That you put them under the category of humor and irony,
oh,
but that are names that translate to vice or fuck you. So talk to me about this kind of like being a bad boy in Spain, and does this maybe feel more reflective of a certain strain of Spanish culture as well? I don't want to get too personal, but I know you've been living in Barcelona, and like there's this feeling of Barcelona not really being on the side of people there, and of course you bristle at that. Is there some of that being expressed through certain strains of naming?
I think that this kind of badass naming, this irreverent and
Mhm.
transgressive naming, is the real trend for me now in Spain. Because when I was young in the past century, and even in the past millennium, names in Spain were very serious. I can't remember irony or humor names when I was a child or even when I was young. They didn't exist. But I think that in the last 10 years, it has been a real explosion of this kind of humor names and ironic names. uh, Even sometimes scatological names. I can think about a musical band in Spain that's called Ojete Calor.
Does that mean hot shit?
Ojete means asshole,
Oh,
the asshole,
uh-huh.
not asshole in the sense of you are an asshole, but the
Right.
literal asshole.
Anatomical. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And calor is heat, so
Yeah.
it's the heat of the asshole,
Hmm.
and that's the name
Nice.
of. Or La Polla Records, for instance, is the La polla is the dick,
Mm,
literally. So we have this kind of names in some contexts, because in more serious contexts like banking or financial or insurance or corporate, they are not typical, these kind of names, of
you're not
course.
saying hot asshole in banking?
No, I don't know
Okay.
any bank that claim themselves to be assholes, at least
Yeah, it's
through this
an
name.
opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe they are, but they don't say so. They don't
Hmm.
want to recognize.
Hmm.
But we have plenty of them in bars and restaurants and food and wine and beers. So, for instance, we have names like Malamigo. It's a bad friend. It's a wine. Or we have one that's very popular in Spain. There's a brand that's called Putos Modernos, fucking moderns. Um, it's difficult to define what they do, because they do advertising and they do stationery and they do fashion. They are a couple of guys who work for other brands,
Mm.
and who have a very particular tone to communicate, and this their messages are very recognizable. So they are called putos modernos. There are a hamburger chain which is called vicio, which means vice. Or we have, for instance, restaurants called malparit. Malparit in Catalan means literally a bastard. Or we have no, an advertising agency in Barcelona, which is ruled just by women, and it's called feas. Feas means ugly. They call themselves ugly, which I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best names I've seen in the last century in the advertising sector. Or there are a company which makes wedding planning and event management that's called La Puta Suegra, which means the fucking mother-in-law. So there are plenty of these names based on humor, and I think
Yeah.
it's very nice because I think that they target a very specific audience, which is young, and who's not afraid of saying anything through the name. Because I think that years before, when I was decades before, when I was a child, uh, companies took themselves maybe too seriously, and maybe today we're exactly in the opposite scenario. So brands can make fun of themselves. They can mock themselves, so they are not afraid of saying these irreverent messages through their brands, which I think it's very good, because it's a way to empathize with your audience.
Yeah, we had a trend. I for some reason it feels very fresh for me to hear it in
Yeah.
Spanish. I think in the U.S. we did that for a while, and I couldn't even tell you where naming is at in the U.S. right now. But we had things like egg slut and biscuit bitch, and it was like this big trend, especially in
Yeah.
food of names. But so many people did it that it's like, all right, what's fresh now? But I love these examples. They're so good. Uh, it's so interesting to like watch what is happening when a market kind of hits that threshold, because I don't think it comes out of just like, oh, let's be more playful. Like there's more of a response to something there, like an agency run by women calling themselves fayas, like
Yeah.
ooh, like that. It hits me in the heart. I
Yeah,
really like it. It feels very brave and bold, and you're not doing that just because it's a trend. You're doing that because in general you want to express something that if you were to come at it from the opposite angle wouldn't have the same impact. So I love those examples very much. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. They are strong statements about yourself. At the end of the day, a brand is a statement, so you have to choose very carefully what you want to convey through your name. So when you call yourself Fea, for instance, is a super strong and very different statement that positions in
Yeah.
a very specific place. So I think it's brave
It
to do
is, and
that.
it's going to align you with certain types of clients. Certain types of
Yeah,
clients, they want a more traditional agency. They want to do very traditional work.
of
They're
course.
not going to come with you, but someone who wants to do brave work. So naming as that filter of who's right for you, I think is a good tool. The
Yeah,
Go
but
on.
this is positioning. In fact,
Exactly. Yeah.
positioning is not being everything for everyone, but being everything for just a few. So that's
Just a few.
positioning.
And
Yeah.
that's, and a few people are brave enough to do it very specifically. So we're talking about these as kind of names that really fit with maybe a younger generation. You talk about a trend toward renaming. So some companies, not all of them, but shifting from those more descriptive, very old-fashioned names to ones that are a little more flexible, that are a little bit more kind of future ready, fitting with kind of the new tone of things. Not that they're all calling themselves swear words now, but can you talk a little bit maybe about some of that trend of some of that renaming that you've been seeing from some of the like old guard names into some fresher names?
I don't think it's a specific trend, a specific Spanish trend, because there are plenty of renaming everywhere. But I think that the reason behind this renaming is always the same in Spain or in other countries. So you have a name that's obsolete, and this name is probably obsolete not for legal or linguistic reasons. Sometimes there are legal reasons or linguistic reasons that lead to this renaming, but in most cases are a name that doesn't express what the brand in fact is today. Maybe it expresses what it did, sorry, 100 or 50 years ago, but not what the brand does today and will do in 10 years or in 20 years. So in Spain, I think there have been plenty of renaming, but some of them, I think maybe the first I remember, the recent renaming I remember is the change from Telefonica, which was the biggest company, the biggest communications company in Spain, because it was a monopoly, in fact. Um, and it changed the name to Movistar in order to be more flexible, because they started with telephone like anyone else, but now telephone is to say telephone through your name is not relevant to anyone. So you need a more flexible and more actual name that reflects what you do and what you want to do, no what you did when you started decades ago. Another one in the energy sector is gas natural, natural gas, that changed its name for Naturgy. I've always hated this name, Naturgy, because I think it's what I call a Frankenstein monster. Because I think it's very bad done. I don't know who did that. If they did internally, or maybe some naming expert or naming specialist. But I think it's not it's not a natural word, because the word nature and the word energy doesn't match, doesn't mix. So when you try to mix two words that don't naturally fit, the result is this kind of Frankenstein monster, which has a very good soul, but the face was horrible and frightened everybody. So
Scared little
I think
kids,
that,
yeah.
yeah, the idea behind the name is very good, and I can understand it, but the final execution, I think that at least it scares me from a namer perspective, at least. Um, and another one, the most recent, I think it was last year, if I'm not wrong, in 2024. It was the change of Cepsa, which was a very old oil company, to Mueve. Mueve, which is a word very close to mueve. Mueve means move. So mueve and mueve have exactly the same associations. And this is the idea of a greener energy. So this greener energy that moves the world and that propels the world, but not the oil, which
Right.
is very well. Yeah, we know uh, about
We know.
oil and the image it has this industry. So they all tend to be green, and they some of them do it through their logos, and other ones do through their names, like has done Mueve.
Interesting. Yeah, so often the name change is not to reflect a better business model. The name change is to reflect that people don't like your business model anymore, and you're trying to go, no, 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 no. Look over here. Look over here. We're green. We got flowers. Hey, hey, hey. Oh, it's so funny. Well, Ignasi, I was going to ask you one last question, but I want to ask you one thing before I ask my last question, and it has nothing to do with any of the questions that I told you we would talk about. But I would love if you just want to talk a little bit about, your relationship to just like creativity. You gave a great presentation to all of us. I think it was earlier this year about all these like, really cool collaborations you've done with all these great artists and creative people in your life. And whenever I teach naming, I always tell people like it's just so important to just have creative projects that have nothing to do with profit, which sucks, but that's life too. But just doing creative, interesting stuff, and how you think about that in the context of being a namer. What is your creative life, and how does that have to do with coming up with names for big brands?
I think I'm very old fashioned, because I like a lot to do very weird things like reading. For instance, I read a lot, and I read everything that I can read. I go to the theater a lot because I love theater. Um, I go to art exhibitions because I I receive plenty of stimuli with doing that. So if I love to do works, I think that's logical. This love for reading. I think it's impossible to be a namer and to hate reading, for instance. So being surrounded of creative people is very important to me. I have some friends which are artists. Some do pictures. Some others do illustrations. Some others write. So I think the relationship with these people are very important to me, because it's like playing a ping pong game sometimes, because the kind of conversation you can have with these people is not a cultured conversation. I don't mean that. It's based mainly on irony and on sense of humor. So I think that it's very important, sense of humor for creativity, because creativity without sense of humor can be very bad, in fact, because you can be creative in a positive way or in a negative way, because there are very we've seen every day that there are very creative ways to do evil things. So, and this is creativity too. So I try to be surrounded with not just with creative people, but with works of art. There are plenty of things that I consider works of art, not just the things that you can see on a museum, but things that surrounds me in my house. So to me, these are the things that inspire me. In fact, the people I know, the books I read, the music I listen to, the theater, the exhibitions. I also love walking on the street and looking at everything. So I said I was very old fashioned because there are not very online distractions in my life or online stimuli. I use some social net as everybody does,
Yeah.
but I'm not very fond of it. Maybe Instagram is the net I use more because I follow lots of architecture and interior design and this kind of things, because these are the things that I love. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's such an important thing to think about of like, where do ideas come from? Where do words come from? They come from people, and I know people are on the computer, so then we can go, oh, it comes from the computer. But as we think about name creation in any culture, in any language, thinking about, if you're working with a namer, I think in an ideal world, that namer has a very rich creative life and does find inspiration in lots of sources, because that's, I think, I hope, what people are paying for. It's not for someone who can, right here on my desk, I've got a book called The Word Menu. It's not because I can open the word menu. It's because of everything, of the creative life I also try to lead. And just like, as we enter an increasingly digital world, I always think it's important to come back to like the people stuff and the inspiration stuff and the art stuff, because I think that perspective makes professional namers such as yourself especially skilled at what you do. So thank you for sharing a little bit about that. It's just one of my favorite things about you.
you're
Um,
welcome.
final question, and then we'll play a little teeny game. Is there a Spanish brand name that you feel is so Spanish that you really love for how well it conveys sort of like Spanish culture or a Spanish tone? And I know that's a big question, but do you have just say it, do you have a favorite Spanish name or name of Spain, not necessarily in Spanish?
Maybe one of the most Spanish names for me is Osborne. In fact, it's Osborne, the surname Osborne, but in Spanish we say Osborne, which is a very old brand of wine and sherry wine.
Mm,
And I say that it's super Spanish because the image of Osborne is a bull, and the bull is the typical Spanish totem. So I remember when I was a child, there was huge bulls at the side of the roads, not the city roads, but the autopistas. The oh, I don't remember the name in English.
like a
Uh,
highway?
the highway. So at the side of the highway, there was these big advertisements that were shaped in like a bull, and this was the logo of Osborne. So for me, this is very very Spanish. I can't conceive a brand like that outside Spain. It's for me, it's impossible to
Beautiful.
conceive it. And there are another brand which is called La Española, and it's a brand
Very
of
Spanish.
olives. Yeah, very Spanish. So it's impossible to be more Spanish than that. Uh, Maybe for me, they are the more Spanish, the Spanishest of the Spanish brands.
I love that. Cool. Thank you. All right. So our final game, and we're playing this a little different because I do, I don't speak good Spanish, but I speak a little bit of Spanish. But I'm going to ask you to stump me by saying something to me in Catalan, which I do not speak, and I'm going to guess at what it means. And knowing you, Ignasi, I am on the edge of my seat here. All right. So what statement have you prepared for me?
16 jutges mengen fetge d'un penjat.
Okay. Say it
That's
one more
all.
time. Okay.
16 jutges mengen fetge d'un penjat.
Okay. None of those words sound familiar to me at all. So I'm going to just base it on false English cognates and something about uh, don't judge yourself, but have faith in the outcome. How'd I do?
But you have got the word judge,
Okay.
because said
You slowed
judges.
down and said it. You sort
Yeah,
of gave me a clue there.
yeah,
Okay.
judge. In fact, is a tongue twister in Catalan
Okay.
because as you can see, there's plenty of alliteration in this phrase "setze jutges mengen fetge d'un penjat." So it's one of these tricky sentences, and the meaning is absolutely stupid because it literally means 16 judges eat the liver of a hanged man. That's the
Whoa!
meaning of this
Whoa!
sentence.
Is it related to where does it come from, or when does it come from? Is it something? Is it like an old tongue
It,
twister?
it's a very popular tongue twister. Everybody knows it, but I don't know the origin of
I
this
wonder
tongue
if
twister.
there's
But
a.
I'm gonna look at it.
All right,
Yeah,
I'm gonna look at
yeah,
it
I'm gonna
too.
look at it when we finish. It's the
All
first
right.
thing I'm gonna do. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's it for our conversation. Thank you so much, Ignasi. I love talking to you. I love your naming work. I'm very jealous of people who got to learn naming from you because I know they got a really great foundation in this. So yeah, thank you, and I will drop the report in the show notes for everyone to read. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you next time. Bye bye. Thank you for listening. How the World Names is produced by me, Caitlin Barrett. Music is by Alex Kulik. Subscribe to our newsletter at wearenaming.substack.com and submit a question for a future episode. If you'd like to partner with us on a global naming project, visit wearenaming.com to find out more.